Hey, welcome back to my series on how to make Neurofunk drums. You're on part 2 now, where we're going to be making some snares. The process for making snares is really similar to kicks. I'm going to start with a few instances of operator making up multiple layers to build a synthetic snare. Then I'm going to saturate it, and then I'm going to add character layers, so just texture, other snares or bits of Foley, anything that's useful. And I'm going to squish all those together with a round of saturation and save those samples for later. I hope you enjoy. So we're going to move on to building our Neurofunk snares. We're going to do this again with operator. And what I like to do with snares is build them at 200 Hertz. I know that Neurofunk snares are usually higher pitched than that, but I'm going to put in a fixed at 200 and we're going to repitch it later when we're putting it in our song. It'll give it that resampled feel and you'll see how it will all work out. We want an attack portion which lasts for a short while. We want no sustain, and so that's perfectly acceptable for the body of our snare. We're going to group that and we're going to call that donk, and we're going to make a copy, call this clap. Now this layer we're actually going to use white noise. I'm going to use a bandpass on 12 dB filter, a little bit of resonance, and that's going to give us the nice clap and noise decay. So together they sound like this. So we're already getting a bit of a snare sound. Duplicate the clap again, and we want some hiss to give us that nice airy feeling. We're going to use a high pass filter, 12 dB still, and move it way up. Bring the resonance down. Okay, so we've got a really weak sounding snare there. So the trick to toughening that sound up is going to be effects. So first of all, we're going to use a saturator, analog clip, just a tiny bit of drive. That's sounding a bit tougher already. It does decay for a little bit too long maybe, so we're going to bring the decay on the donk down a bit, and from there it's just a matter of mapping interesting parameters to a macro rack and then making a few variations. So you've got 8 to 10 nice snares to start with. I'm going to map that decay to the first one, map the clap decay, and map the hiss decay. The frequency of the clap, maybe the filter frequency. So now that our rack's mapped, you can use push or any other controller to just tweak the sound and make a few variations and just bounce out 8 to 10 interesting snares. Okay, so I've got 10 snares there. Let's go through and process them individually. So in an EQ, what does this one sound like? Okay, so I can see that the main tone is probably a bit loud. I'm not really a fan of this amount of resonance, so I can bring it down a little bit. Can maybe use overdrive to rough it up. Okay, and if we resample that again, so we went from this to this. Just a little bit tougher. So we can keep doing similar things, and we're just taking out those lumpy peaks in the frequency range because I think they're a little bit too extreme. What we're looking for is a nice donk at the start, a bit of a dip in the frequency spectrum, and then rising all the way up. It's not too bad. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's just a general shape that snares tend to have. I quite like that, so we'll resample it. There's no right or wrong answer here, by the way. I'm just doing what I think sounds good. I'm not working off a cheat sheet or anything like that. I'm just doing what I think is going to sound good in the final mix. And you only develop that by experience. So do what feels good to you. What you're trying to do is create some characterful snares. So if something sticks out to you too much, dial it back a little bit. If something sounds like it's too recessed, then bring it up a little bit. You're just shaping the overall character and making sure that we've got a good bass. Hey, it's just me from the future dropping in to show you what these snares sound like. Apparently I didn't do that during recording. On with the show. Okay, that's our electronic snares that we've got. Now the same process as the kicks is going to apply. I'm going to go through and I'm going to find some interesting textural layers like acoustic snares or hats or repitch some cymbals, whatever sounds interesting to me at the time. And I'm going to just gently layer that with our electronic snares so that we give each snare its own unique character and so that it sounds like something interesting rather than just operator shoved through a saturator. Before I do that though, I'm going to save each of these for later use. Because we've just built a bunch of useful dry snares, you should save them. That way you don't have to do this repeatedly. You can have a nice collection of fairly dull sounding snares ready to drop into a track where you know that the transient's there, you know that they sound good, and you know that they've been leveled so that they're as loud as they can get. So I'm going to right click and show in Explorer and sort by date modified. We know that our top 10 files are our snares. Over in Ableton we go to our sample library again, and under our NF kits I'm going to make a new folder, NF snares dry. Okay, I'm going to drag our samples into that snares dry. Now we've got a bunch of dry snares should we ever need them. Okay, I'm going to layer up these snares. First of all, this snare. It's way too hissy, but we'll deal with it. So we'll just go to the stock drum library. We'll find something to layer it with. I'll start with a snare layer. So we want to really preserve the transient on our main snare and not interfere with it. And we want to EQ out, particularly anything around 200. Now, because our snares are so loud, it might be handy to saturate or enhance our samples as well. Let's get another layer in there. One thing when working with these snare samples is the tuning is more important than it was with the kicks. So the snare layer should be tuned to approximately 200 Hertz before you start messing with it as well. That way any harmonics that the sample has will be in the right places for our electronic snare. For this acoustic quark sample, I can hear that its resonant frequency isn't at 200. So I'm just going to look for it in the EQ. So it's a little bit low. I'm just going to pitch it up 1 or 2 until it feels like it's about 200. Okay, and this MPC hit sounds wrong as well. So it's at 135. We're going to pitch it up a lot. Down 1. That feels about right. Okay, and this snare feels way too long. Okay, cool, that feels a bit better. Oh, I like that clap. Let's get rid of the nonsense. It looks like it's around 200 Hertz already. Cool. Because our snares take up most of the frequency range above 200 Hertz, we can actually EQ out bits to let our samples through a bit more. So our samples sound like this, which is already pretty nice, and we add our snare in. So the hiss is kind of drowning out the rest of the samples. We can bring it down a little. Might pitch this up an octave. Cool, that's our first snare. Don't forget you can pan elements left and right. So I've got this on the left. I'm going to find something else on the right. So now they've got some really severe stereo separation. Our snare should sound a lot more wide. Okay, I'm going to cheat again like I did last time. Now that I've done 4, I'm going to just copy and paste the rest. So I'll copy and paste my 4 completed snares, and then I'll just replace the individual snare hits. And I'm going to do the same thing again for our last 2 snares. Okay, I'm going to mix and match some of our layers because it's pretty obvious that they're the same ringing tones. Okay, so the next step is to resample our snares again. Okay, so our groups can disappear. We're just going to work in this channel. Again, if we've gone over 0 by not fading properly, we want to sort that out now. We can probably give some of these some extra levels. Yeah, I'm going to just say a couple of dB of saturator and then we're all good. Consolidate all of them, and now we've got a bunch of snares ready for use. So we're going to do the same show in Explorer technique as before. We should have our 10 snares in here. We only want the audio files. We don't care about the analysis files. And in our sample library, Gonna make a new folder, NF Snares, and just drag them in. Okay, so in part 2, we went through building some snares. We made some synthetic snares, and then we layered them with other recorded snares to get some interesting character. I hope you enjoyed it.